So if there's something I think that pretty much every gamer can agree with is that PlayStation's success this generation, I think, is founded in the idea of creating not only exclusive games that are high rated, but more specifically single player narrative driven exclusive games. I think it's safe to say that it has been a winning formula for them. We've been talking about it a lot on my channel recently, and I've been experiencing some of these games myself, and I feel like I can reaffirm that yes, a lot of what Sony has created and is continuing to create are awesome single player experiences that you really can't get anywhere else. And I think that what we can also agree on is that Sony has not been really big on the multiplayer side of things. And it's interesting. It's very interesting because a lot of people, I don't think, are upset about that. I don't think there's many people sitting around. I mean, there definitely are some. But I'd say I don't think a ton of people are sitting around saying, man, I really wish PlayStation would come out here and create more multiplayer online-driven exclusives. Now, when it comes to me just talking about my preferences and the way I like the game, I'm not against multiplayer games. I love single-player games, but I also love multiplayer games. I'm the type of person where I would like to have the best of both worlds whenever possible. But at the same time, I do not like that a lot of publishers and a lot of developers have really messed things up when it comes to their monetization schemes and just proving time and time again that what we call, or what they call games as a service really just translates to please give us more money over time and don't stop giving us more money. Now, there have been developers and publishers who've done it right, and there have been those who obviously have done it very wrong. And so I think a lot of you guys are going to find what we're going to talk about very interesting, because it says here that speaking to Business Insider, PlayStation boss Sean Layden at one point found himself talking about multiplayer games and spilling some interesting teasing tidbits about the future of PlayStation. Couch co-op, I mean, that's a whole category I think the industry needs to look back at, said Layden. We have that with sports titles and some racing titles, but not with much else, and I think that speaks to the power of the internet on one hand, but otherwise we might want to revisit that to get more family engagement in the gaming experience. But no, I was referencing more with the things like GTA 5 Online, or you look at Call of Duty, or Fortnite, or any of those experiences, added Layden, clarifying a previous talking point earlier in the interview. Worldwide Studios, like I say, we've been going really heavy into story-driven gaming, the power of the narrative, big, spectacular experiences, but not a whole lot in the multiplayer side of things, I think. That's an area where you will likely see us start to make more noise in the new term. And make no mistake about it, when he says in the new term, he is talking about the PlayStation 5 and the next generation. He just can't acknowledge it that way because they haven't officially and formally announced the PlayStation 5 yet, for obvious reasons. So I think that a lot of people are going to find this quote extremely interesting, because there is no doubt that Sean Layden is teasing something here, and essentially what he's saying is that you can expect to see next generation more multiplayer experiences. And I think some people are feeling a little bit nervous and a little bit possibly upset about what he's saying here, more specifically because of the games he's referencing, talking about GTA 5 Online, talking about Call of Duty, and also Fortnite. Now, out of these three games, they all have something in common. Not only that they're multiplayer driven, but they're very microtransaction driven, and that's something that a lot of gamers, especially those who support Sony, want nothing to do with. And that's also a big reason why a lot of people express disdain towards Microsoft and Xbox, because even though they've said that they want to remain committed to single player experiences, I think on all fronts, whether it's multiplayer or single player, I think Microsoft has had a real struggle. But people don't like the fact, not everybody, but a lot of people don't like this idea that Microsoft is trying to chase games as a service. It is not just Microsoft, though. However, it is pretty clear that as a industry, every publisher wants these types of games because they are cash cows, and I don't think anybody can deny that. But when you think about GTA 5 Online, when you think about Call of Duty and you think about Fortnite, I think we can maybe all agree on the fact that out of these 3 games in particular, Fortnite isn't nearly as egregious because it is a free-to-play game, and anything you do buy, as far as I know, is just cosmetic. GTA Online is not a free-to-play game. A lot of people have issues with their microtransactions, and don't even get me started with Call of Duty. They are probably easily the worst offenders. So a lot of people are going to feel a little bit upset because people love PlayStation for these single-player narrative-driven experiences, and it, in my opinion, has been a major driving force in PlayStation's success. But we do have to be real here, people. And we do have to understand that Sony, just like Microsoft, just like Nintendo, just like any other company, is in it to make money. These corporations are not our friends. That doesn't mean there can't be a mutual relationship where there's understanding and respect and, a little bit of care in there. But they're corporations. They're here to make money. They're here to sell you a product and sell you on something, and they want your money in return. And when we hear Sean Layden talking about this, I'm not totally against it, and I don't think anybody should really jump to the conclusion that, oh man, this is it, this is Sony changing, they're shifting, they're going to be done making their narrative, single-player driven experiences, and they're just going to start making games as a service, and they're following the same path as all these other publishers. No, I don't think there's any reason at all to jump to that conclusion, especially when we hear Sean Layden also talking about how they're going to make fewer games but higher quality games, and there's no way, absolutely no way, they are going to abandon making these cinematic, story-driven single-player experiences. Because even though they may not make as much money in the long term as these other games like Fortnite and Call of Duty's multiplayer and GTA Online, it really has a big impact on PlayStation within the gaming industry as a whole, and it kind of like it garners them goodwill. It garners them things that you can't really put a price on, that you can't really buy, and in the end that will translate to better sales for them and more profitability. But at the same time, I cannot fault Sony for looking at where the industry is headed and the way things are changing, and how all of these publishers are trying to have at least one franchise that can be their cash cow, and like this never-ending experience where it's multiplayer and they constantly give gamers a reason to come back and continually spend money. I cannot fault Sony for wanting to pursue this. It's just part of the industry now, and I really think what it comes down to is we don't have to be upset about that. What we need to focus on is making sure that if publishers are going to pursue this, they do it the right way, and they don't, try to mess with their customers and just deceive their customers and treat their customers like wallets. And I don't think Sony would do that. I think this is where Sony, they're kind of approaching it, if they approach it during the PS5 generation, they're coming in a little bit late, but I think with that, they can also learn from other publishers, like what works, what doesn't, what do gamers respond positively to, what do they respond negatively to. And I also think that they're not going to push this super hard. I think what they're going to do is continue to have these cinematic, story-driven single-player experiences, but then in between that, try to have some supplemental games that can act as multiplayer-driven. But who knows, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they're going to take the same approach with their multiplayer titles that they're developing as they are with their single player, and that they're going to be huge, they're going to have massive budgets, they're going to have a ton of time, and it's going to be treated like a massive AAA game, except it's just going to be multiplayer focused. Again, me personally, I love multiplayer games. I love single player games. I would like to get from both Sony and Microsoft the best of both worlds, and I think they're both perfectly capable of delivering that. I'm not saying they need to do anything, but if they're going to pursue this, if Sony wants to make single player and multiplayer games, I would like to see both experiences be top quality, or at least, be as high quality as they can and be fair, at least when we're talking about the multiplayer side of things. And I'm not against that. I'm not going to freak out and be like, no, don't make multiplayer games, Sony. Don't do it. Don't try new things. Don't try to diversify. No. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think they should be doing this, and I think you got to try to look at it from a positive light, because Sony, as of recently, has given no reason or indication to be fearful about, you know, how they're going to approach their game creation. And I think that they're smart enough to know, at least I would hope so, that their fans, the people who are buying PS4s and buying these games like God of War, like Horizon Zero Dawn, they're not necessarily crying out for multiplayer. And if you're going to try to sell them on, you know, trying out a multiplayer game, you need to make sure you do it in a way where it's fair and it's respectable, and it's not about just, you know, treating customers like wallets. And so it's understandable that I think some gamers are getting nervous that Sean Layden's referencing these games once again, like Call of Duty and GTA Online and Fortnite. But I don't think you have to worry about it. I think that it's one of these things where we are going to have to wait to see. I think it's exciting. I think it's interesting. And I'm honestly very eager to see what type of multiplayer games Sony plans on bringing out next generation, and how they plan on, you know, winning these single-player narrative-driven gamers over to these multiplayer experiences. And who knows, maybe they could fail in this endeavor. I'm not saying it's a guaranteed success. It's absolutely not. Maybe they could fail in this, and maybe they would just take a step back and say, okay, never mind. Clearly this isn't our thing. But I don't think anybody can get upset or blame them for wanting to try to bring some more multiplayer experiences, you know, with their PlayStation exclusives. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I did play The Last of Us multiplayer, and it was actually really good. And I believe that did have microtransactions. So we're going to have to wait to see, guys. At this point, I'm going to ask you to let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. What do you think about Sean Layden's comments? What do you think about the possibility of getting more multiplayer exclusives for PlayStation 5 come next generation? Does that excite you? Does that disappoint you? Are you somewhere in between? Are you going to wait and see? Make sure you let me know. Be sure to leave the video a like if you did enjoy it. It really helps it out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Hit the bell notification icon, and also share the video out as well, because that really helps. But until next time, guys, take care.